Perfect.
Excellent. I'll share my screen.
Great.
Here we go. And if you are new to Zoom and you are seeing my slide now, but also seeing a box showing some of the participants in this meeting, just know that you can click and drag that box around in case it's blocking anything that you would like to read. All right, so hi and good morning. It's 6 a.m. here in Portland, Oregon in the United States. I don't know if it's a beautiful day because it's still dark out, but I hope it's a beautiful day where you are. This is a presentation about social emotional learning in Storyline, which I believe is a given, whether we try to or not. We are teaching students social and emotional skills. It's part of a practice. But I'd like to talk a little bit about being intentional in that teaching of social emotional skills. All right, can I navigate? There we go. So I teach at a public school in Portland, Oregon. It is called Access Academy. It's a public program, but a special alternative program for students who are highly gifted. This means students who have tested in the 99th percentile in at least one area of intellect. And so it's a very interesting and challenging group of children and a wonderful group of children. On the left there, you can see some of our shaggy little boys. And on the right, I'm post-pandemic hair. And on the right, one of my female students completing an engineering challenge, which of course she did beautifully. I just love that. So gifted children, like the ones I teach, we say they are developing asynchronously, meaning that as their intellect is very high, they generally have other areas of development that are lagging behind their same age peers. And quite frequently those areas of lagging development are social skills, friendship skills, empathy. They also experience a lot of anxiety and a lot of perfectionism. And that absolutely shows up in Storyline work in lots of ways. There's a couple more of my wacky students. If you were in my last presentation, the gentleman with the mustache on his forehead was the creator of the trifold I showed you. Very clever child. All right, so wait a minute. If we're talking about developing empathy and social skills, that is actually good for every child, gifted or not. So if you don't teach gifted children, never fear, you're still in the correct presentation, because all children need to work on empathy. It's how they become the best human beings they can be. And of course, all of them need to work on social skills thanks to our lovely pandemic. We have had, in Oregon, we've had over a year of school shutdown. That's a year of children not being with their peers, not developing socially as they should. Not to mention now that they are back from the shutdown, learning in person again, they were already lagging in their social skills. Now they're even further behind, and they have to relate to other children while wearing masks. We've just a week ago made masks optional in Portland schools, and many students are remaining masked with the continued risk. So development of empathy while we have masks on, that's difficult. All right, I'm going to borrow some language from CASEL, which is the Collaborative for Social and Emotional Learning, based in Chicago, Illinois, in the United States. Their framework of 5 social emotional sort of learning areas is used very commonly in our academic work and in social emotional school curriculum in the United States. So it's just very handy. 5 areas that I think are incredibly relevant to all teaching, but definitely to storyline: self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. So I'll highlight just a bit how each of those areas show up and are met with intention by the teacher in storyline. So starting with self-awareness and self-management. A wise teacher once told me, when students make their character, they're always making themselves. And I absolutely agree. These 3 characters were all made in the same storyline by 3 different children. And now that I know these children well, I think these characters are a perfect reflection of how these children saw themselves in this moment and a little bit who they want to be. And I think that's kind of always true about our characters. So students learn about themselves quite a bit in the process of making a character. So what do we do with intention? Of course, we make characters. We explore their backstories. We give children a chance to invent a life, and it's generally the life they want. You make sure the characters are welcomed into the community by being introduced. And I have students who experience pretty strong anxiety, particularly around speaking to the large group. So I would give them options for how they could introduce their character. They could turn their camera off in the remote setting. They could, in the classroom, hold a portrait character over their face and present from behind it. I've had students hold their paper doll above a bookshelf while they're hiding behind the bookshelf. So only the character was visible, which gave those students a little bit more of a safe opportunity to speak as their character. Characters should be a part of just about everything we do in the storyline. They should speak through writing, through actual dialogue. I would recommend using process drama, if you know what that is, basically having children acting out parts of the story. It is a great way for students to practice their self-management of the space around them. My students are so cerebral. They really are challenged with not bumping into people, but they do better when they are the villager who is stepping outside their home in the morning to start their morning chores and looking around and saying hello to their fellow villagers. Their spatial awareness increases within those dramas. Definitely allow your class to get messy. Allow students to work on different things at the same time. Have students making characters while others are putting paper on a wall and others are painting. That will mean they will absolutely have to learn how to manage themselves to a degree and learn how to manage their materials and their space. And even the youngest children can do that, and they will make lots of mistakes and lots of messes, and that's good. Also expect that the process of creation for all children brings with it some frustration. Even children who aren't perfectionists get frustrated. Be gentle with students, but don't let them off the hook. Have them push through the frustration somehow. So speaking of which, I thought we could put something in the chat right now, if people have a moment. If you could imagine, you probably don't have to imagine because this has probably happened to you. You have a child making a character. They get frustrated, crumple it up, and walk away. What could you say to this child to get them to move on from this frustration? I'm gonna stop screen sharing for just a second and see if anybody has anything to add.
Well, I would say that I see that you care and that you probably, we need to find another way how to create a character. but it definitely shows that he cares.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sort of demonstrating empathy in that moment is that's a perfect opportunity.
Whatever project that you are creating, you can keep the focus on that project so that the child doesn't feel that maybe the frustration is real. You can put it towards that project and say to your child, what happened in your characteristic things that got you so frustrated? What's going on there? Well, we can leave that and go on to something else. So maybe the child will forget about how frustrated he or she is.
Moving on to something else, at least temporarily, and acknowledging the frustration, but moving on from it, like sort of diverting the attention to something else for now and coming back to it later. I may be, maybe I'm a bit harsh, but I would do exactly that, and then I would follow up with, so tomorrow at 10 a.m. we're going to come back and we're going to do this. And you can work with a friend or you can work with me, but we'll get it done then. So I'm gonna head back to my slideshow now. I didn't realize there are some more people there in Sweden. Hello, other people in Sweden.
There's quite a few people now.
Right.
Oh no, I have lost my presentation for a second, but I will. Technical difficulties, it'll just be a moment. All right. Okay. Nope. Okay, old-fashioned way. We'll just go to my original slideshow. I thought I was being clever. Okay, we may just not do that break in the presentation again. That's okay. All right. Okay, so we make plenty of decisions in Storyline as the teacher, but also the goal is to create incidents in which children have to think about difficult decisions and process them and work together to solve them. Well, I think that every age of children benefits from the problems being real world problems, or at least adult problems that are presented in a developmentally appropriate way. So not, shall we invite the giant over for tea, but shall our village share our water resources with the giant? And any age child can process and analyze and think about difficult decisions like that. So do what you do in Storyline, but I propose that we make incidents as meaningful as possible, giving children the opportunity to really stretch themselves to think like adults. But here's the thing, they don't think like adults, they think like children, which is actually better. Let's see. So first, pose difficult problems. Give children an opportunity to respond in an authentic way. Let them respond in character, and their characters are often adults. And so let them respond in that adult voice, both in their writing or in word or thought balloons and in group discussion. Make sure that at least with some of the work in each Storyline topic, you have a difficult problem posed and then have students respond individually and then bring it back to the whole group to make a decision. You can make that decision democratically. You should take them seriously. Children have a strong moral compass, generally stronger than adults, and that should be taken seriously. Children are not, let's say, compromised by compromise. They know what they want and they will fight for it, and that should be absolutely respected. And at the same time, we will work to help the group come to consensus. So it's difficult, but it's worth the difficulty. Instead of this slide, actually, I'm going to share.
Nobody can see nothing because it's all black.
Really?
Yes, people are saying that in the chat for a while.
Oh no! Okay. Let's try it again.
2-3 minutes, nothing there.
How about now?
It's working now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Goodness sakes. Okay, well, you didn't miss anything interesting. Let's see. So many years ago, was teaching a topic in which children were using the democratic process to identify a candidate and then run that candidate for president of the United States. It's a very serious storyline, a wonderful storyline. And after we completed the primary election to find our nominee, it became clear that there had actually been some bribery between children to buy votes. And that was unexpected, but it gave me as the teacher an opportunity to educate my class about how important the sanctity of voting was in a democracy and about voting fraud, and to show them examples of that and talk to them about why this might be very important to their parents too. It was a very emotionally difficult issue to process for the class. Ultimately, the group consensus was to re-vote the primary, and a different candidate was successful. And that was very, very hard, but incredibly powerful and worth it. So we can just think about this question. I'm not going to pause my presentation because too many technical difficulties. But maybe at the end we can share what are some really challenging problems or dilemmas that either you have posed or the children brought up themselves in a storyline. We have the opportunity as storyline teachers to invite our children to do difficult thinking, and we should. It shouldn't be easy. I believe that storyline is also an outlet for emotion, a very good outlet for emotion. And it can be very emotionally intense in good ways. So in this photo, my children were in a storyline in which their characters were scientists, and they had built a research facility and were developing ideas about what would be studied in their facility. The subject of animal testing came up, and the child on the left felt so strongly that we should not allow any kind of animal testing in our facility that she started a debate with the child on the right, who believed that, you know, at times there were good reasons to use animal testing. And the thing was, the child on the left has a profound stutter. It is physically difficult for her to speak and socially challenging for her to speak. But she stood there while I filmed her and held a debate with this child for 5 minutes in character the entire time. Her character empowered her to be brave and have this conversation that was quite difficult. And they both walked away from it with a lot to think about. And their real world friendship intact. They still liked and respected each other afterwards, after this in-character exchange. So let's intentionally use emotion in storyline. One way you can do that is to identify emotions that come up in storyline. If your school has social emotional curricula, use it. Use it outside of the storyline or within the storyline, or just reference it within the storyline. Use the language from the curriculum. For example, in the United States, we have a curriculum called Zones of Regulation, which associates emotions with colors. So students might learn about being in the red zone, which could be intensely upset or angry. So we might say, so your character seems like they're in the red zone right now. Do you agree? So sort of bringing that identification and the language into the storyline. Make sure that children have a chance to speak, literally speak. Make sure they can sit down in a circle and take turns and talk to one another. But also, because that's not every student's favorite activity, make sure they can speak through their character in writing and in writing that gets displayed. Make sure that you don't skip over conversations that are uncomfortable. Let children experience discomfort. It's good for them. Reflect individually on emotional things and as a group, and constantly praise children for taking part in the dialogue. Praise them for struggling. That was a difficult thing to talk about, class, but you did it. And we haven't reached a decision, but maybe tomorrow we will. All right, and again, I won't leave the presentation right now, but think about things that you do to help students express themselves when the topic is controversial or difficult. How might they express themselves in writing? How might you structure a class conversation or a small group conversation or a one-on-one conversation? So just things to think about. All right. So the work we do in Storyline, whether you gained anything from these slides, you're already instructing on social emotional skills. But with intention, we can absolutely help students express themselves who have difficulty doing that. You can help students overcome frustration. You can help students manage their bodies. You can help them manage their time, their space, their ability to work with materials. You can help students make difficult decisions in a context that really matters to them. You can help them communicate with people they disagree with. And then you can help the group work together towards a common goal. These things are all part of what we do. So thank you so much. Here's some little characters that definitely did not always agree on difficult things. I'm gonna stop.
Thank you so much.
Let's see if there are any questions in the chat. Not yet. Are there any?
Yeah, mostly sorry about the glitch. I've learned my lesson.
We thought that it was intentional, but
no. Very visual. I like visuals.
Right. Do you guys have any questions?
Oh, hi, Misha. Good to see you too. Good to see you from Spain.
Hello from Barcelona.
Woo-hoo!
I think it was very interesting too when you mentioned that we should not just let it go, but we should come back with the struggles that we want our students to go through. So we don't just give up. But they see that we care, we come back, and we believe in them that they can do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a stubborn person, and I also believe that students should not be off the hook just because we can't reach consensus right away.
Right.
I was thinking about the debate, that moment. Was it like just out of nothing, you created a debate, or did you structure it in some way? Because I would love to be there.
Thank you. It was very emotional when students realized that, and they didn't realize ahead of time, but they realized in that moment that bribing your classmates was improper, and there were a lot of tears. But we had to go through it, and we couldn't let the issue go. Are you kidding me? What an incredible teaching moment, teachable moment.
Right.
Yeah, I think that concludes it. There are no further questions from the room. So thank you again very much. And I'll stop the recording now.
Right.